All right, quarter past the hour here in Moscow. This is RT, and UN observers say they are committed to completing their mission in Syria, seen as a key to ending the violence. This despite the earlier decision to halt it because of security risks. Observers claim they've been given safety guarantees by the Syrian government, but not from the opposition. Now, there's been a spate of fighting in the country, with a major media war also gathering pace. The details now to RT's Marina Portnaya.
The head of the United Nations Supervision Mission in Syria, General Robert Mood, briefed the UN Security Council on the state of Syria and, more importantly, his decision to suspend the mission's activities. According to General Mood, the supervision mission in Syria can resume once he feels that the observers will be safe and secure as they monitor Syria. He says the government has made a commitment to ensure the safety of the UN workers, but so far the opposition group has not.
The commitment by both the government and the opposition to the safety and security and the freedom of movement of the observers. The government has expressed that very clearly in the last couple of days. I've not seen the same clear statements from the opposition yet.
As the head of the UN mission in Syria was briefing the international community about the crisis taking place in the country, media outlets, many of them were reporting stories indicating that Russia was sending or attempting to send attack helicopters to Syria, a claim that Russia has denied. There was another somewhat outrageous report about some alleged military exercises that were scheduled to take place between Russia, Syria, China, and Iran. Now, the reason I say outrageous is because when you listen to the numbers of this report claiming that 90,000 soldiers would be participating, 1,000 tanks, 100 warships, that sounds like a humongous exercise to take place between countries, and of course to include one country in the midst of his own conflict. Now, the Russian Foreign Ministry immediately denied this report, saying it had no merit, there were no facts to it, and also Russian officials say that those reports being unleashed by many Western media outlets are part of a false information campaign being spread about Syria. So it is more important than ever right now, at this, considering the state of the Syrian crisis, for the information that is being provided by media outlets to be factually supported. So here we see that the international community is not just dealing with an escalating conflict in Syria. There's also an escalating information war taking place outside of the country, and most recently it is being aimed at Russia by many Western media outlets.
And as Marina was reporting there, with a full-scale media war taking place outside Syria, we've been talking to one of President Assad's main political and media advisors.
Hussaina Shaaban, political and media advisor to Syria's president. It's great to have you with us here today.
Thank you very much. I'm happy to be here.
So it's now official. UN head of peacekeeping force has confirmed that Syria is in a state of a civil war. What do you say to that statement?
Well, I don't think that is correct. And in the foreign ministry, we put a statement saying that it is not really very responsible to say that Syria is in a state of civil war, especially as we are fighting a terrorism. I think the media in Syria, or some media, has a war on Syria, and it has a life of its own.
Well, talking about media, you know, when you read stories on Syria in the internet media, they often end with a disclaimer saying that the exact number of the victims in this conflict cannot be known because the Syrian government doesn't give access to journalists. On the other hand, Syrian government also says that the Western media is very biased, especially on whom they call terrorists. My first question is, do you think there can be trust restored between the Western media and the Syrian government, or this media war will only escalate?
Well, there are hundreds of journalists who came to Syria during this crisis. It's not true that we don't give access to foreign journalists. Hundreds of Russian journalists came, hundreds of foreign journalists from all over the world, from India, China, Europe, the US, from all over the world. So it's not true that journalists are not given access to Syria. But also there are tens at least of satellite channels who made themselves part of the war on Syria, inciting sectarian wars, fabricating facts about what's happening in our country.
But the media war itself, can it do some real damage? Or
it can do a lot of damage. It can do a lot of damage, the media war, because when you have some religious men inciting sectarian hatred among the Syrian people, there are many people who fall victims to this incitement. Unfortunately, the media war throughout history could be very damaging and very effective.
You know, we often hear, especially lately, the Syrian government pointing fingers to the others who are supplying arms to the unknown terrorist groups. Who are these others? Can you name the countries?
I really don't know, but I would like to say to you that the Syrian government is not the issue. The issue is Syria. The issue is the unity and safety and sovereignty and prosperity of Syria. That is the issue.
Yeah, but you surely have your own version, not official, but your own version. Who may these people be who are helping the terrorists to kill peaceful people, like you say?
I think even the observers, the UN observers say that in every area in Homs there are different groups. We don't know who these people are. We don't know to whom they belong. There's not a single leadership. I mean, you can ask the UN forces and they would say to you, this is the most difficult problem in Syria, that you don't know who your adversary is, and that's the problem.
You know, cooperation with the UN is critical for Syria, safeguarding it against military invasion, but with observers on the ground, you know, there was still hope for some balanced solution. But now that the UN observers abruptly ended the mission and they left, how big is the threat of foreign intervention in Syria?
Well, I think the observers have made many statements saying that the Syrian government cooperated very well with us. They did not stop the mission, they suspended the mission. We also fear for their safety because as Syrian people are targeted, we are also afraid that some observers could be targeted by armed groups, and we would hate that to happen.
All we hear in the Western media is the possibility of foreign invasion, foreign intervention. How do you assess the chances of foreign intervention?
I don't think that is possible in a sense, because if you take what the Syrian crisis and the role of Russia and China with the double veto twice, and with the stand of Russia that it is the Syrian people who should decide the future of Syria, I don't feel that a military strike is possible. And then if you look at what happened in Libya or in Yemen, or you could see the consequences of what happened. And I think the West is quite aware of where things are in the Middle East, and I hope there are enough reasonable people in the world to weigh actions very carefully. And I feel that there's no consideration for such a thing.
Because, of course, you do have Russia's and China's support as far as the UN Security Council goes, but that didn't help much in the Iraqi scenario. You know, they went around the UN Security Council resolution and invaded Iraq. What other means do you guys have except Russia?
Well, they learned from Iraq also. They used that scenario, of course. Countries learn from their experiences. I have no doubt. We all learn from our experiences. I have no doubt that the West learned from Afghanistan and Iraq, and from Libya also, that military strike doesn't always come with flowery results and doesn't achieve the best results that they hope for. I think the world is different now, and I think it's no longer one polar system. I think Russia and China now have a say in the international arena to the relief of most people in the world, because we have suffered from one polar system, and we are happy that with the emergence of the bipolar system, with the emergence of the BRICS, and I think the world is changing.
But look what just happened in Libya, for instance. I mean, the US and their partners, they have a perfect 100% track record when it comes to removing the heads of foreign states that they want removed. And I mean, keeping in mind the resolve they have shown for Bashar al-Assad to go, what makes you think that this could be a different scenario?
Well, I mean, can't you see how much Russia has learned from the Libyan scenario, for example? Russia has changed the political scene in the world by making an excellent stand in support of people who decide their future. And is it democracy to decide in foreign countries to move a ruler? I mean, is this the way democracy should work? Or is it the people who should decide in every country? I'm not only talking about Syria. Is it democracy to say to the British people, you should move Cameron? Or is it the British people who should decide? Why that doesn't apply to Arab countries? Is it because of the colonial hegemony over the Arab people? Is it because the West doesn't believe that Arab people are equal to Western people in their rights to choose their own system? This is a question I pose. Democracy means the people of the country should decide their future, should decide who rules them. And then what did the Syrian people achieve throughout this year? Chaos, boycotting roads, killings. They are not losing their army and police people. We are the ones who are losing it. And when they talked about Libya, what did they say? They said, we didn't lose an American soldier, but thousands, tens of thousands of Libyan people lost their lives. So, does that not matter?
You know, talking about Libya, what are the implications of so much weaponry going into Syria now? What happens once the conflict is over and you have all these uncontrolled arms? Country full of arms. Look what happened in Libya.
I think you can't say that the conflict is over unless all these arms are withdrawn from the streets and from the people. That is what should happen. These arms are part of the conflict. And in fact, those who are smuggling arms and money into Syria are the ones who are igniting the conflict. There are these foreign and external factors, particularly the media war, smuggling arms and smuggling money into Syria is a huge part of the problem in Syria.
But can you do something about this at this point, or it's out of your control?
I think it's the international community who should also do something about it, because those countries who say that they support Kofi Annan's plan, and Kofi Annan's plan say in the first item, stopping armaments and stopping violence from all parties in all its forms.
Some skeptics say that the reason a humanitarian corridor for people in Syria's most troubled place, Homs, is not possible is because Syrian government is afraid, along with the humanitarian aid, will come something else. Is that true?
No, that's not true. We've been cooperating with the humanitarian agencies, but until now we haven't seen anything of the humanitarian aid arriving to Syria. We cooperated absolutely fully with the humanitarian agency. There's no problem.
So there's a humanitarian corridor open in Homs right now?
There's no humanitarian corridor. I don't know where the negotiations are, but there's no need for a humanitarian corridor. But there are assistance that is coming and being distributed through the Red Cross and the Red Crescent.
So do you feel like the allegations about people being badly in need of food and medical aid is exaggeration?
Yeah, extremely exaggerated.
You are also on that black list of sanctioned Syrian officials that United States issued. What does it feel to be like on a sanctioned list, sanctioned by United States?
You mean personally, for me?
Does it change anything for you?
To be sanctioned? Yeah. No, I refused to go to the United States since 2005. And they sent me many invitations from Brookings and from many institutes to go and give a lecture there. I didn't, because I don't like to be treated at the American airports the way they treat people. They probably treat all people like this, but I don't like to be treated that way, and I don't have to go to the United States. And by the way, they didn't sanction me, they froze my assets, and they know I don't have a single dollar, not only in the United States, anywhere in the world. So they can freeze as many assets as they like, because I don't have any of them. My asset is the love for my country and for my people. And all these, propaganda movements to put the name of so and so, and to put my name on sanctions, means nothing to me. 2 books of mine are being sold in the United States. I taught at Duke University. I taught at East Michigan University. A 3rd book of mine is now accepted to be published in the United States. So I thought they should be embarrassed to put my name on a sanction. Not me who should be embarrassed. They should be embarrassed.
Hussaina Shaban, thank you very much for this interview.
Thank you very much. Thank you.